When doing your popsicle elements of art sculpture, you're going to be using Elmer's glue to do your shapes to begin with. It's a lot easier to do all the two-dimensional shapes flatly on a plane. We can put a white tray underneath to assist you with keeping everything flat. Once you get the glue on, feel free to wipe up any excess with your fingers to keep it nice and neat. It will take about 30 minutes for the Elmer's glue to completely dry. You can stack these on top of each other and make a nice neat pile. Do a variety of shapes from diamonds to squares to triangles, or an organic shape is also acceptable. You'll need 15 shapes at least. Our sculptures are going to be monochromatic. Choose one color and then add black and white also to your palette. You'll be mixing those to make tints and shades, with white being a tint, black being a shade. This is an example that I'm painting right now is color blocking, where you paint a straight color all the way through. Currently I am painting a shade as I added black to this. Be nice and neat, go in one direction as you paint. You may need to do more than one coat. When done, go ahead and pick up the next one. This one is demonstrating wet on wet technique, where you're blending your paint while it's still wet. Have water and a paper towel in order to help clean your brush out so that you can get this nice, neat blend, and you'll constantly be going back to dry off your paintbrush. Notice that I have a piece of scrap paper underneath to protect my tables. Another example of adding texture is using this texturate made by Crayola. It's kind of got a lot of grit to it, like sand almost in the paint. So when you add it onto your project and mix it in with your hues and tints and shades, it's going to give you this sandy look on top. It needs to be a little bit thick. Another example of a paint technique is using palette knife or even a little scrap of mat board with heavy application, which creates a three-dimensional feel and a puffiness to the paint. Another technique is creating stars while using a toothbrush. You're going to take a toothbrush, put a little water on it, and then dip it into white paint. Flick it on. This can get a little messy and uncontrolled. Another technique is using sponge painting, where you take a sponge and layer wet on wet with a sponge application. Lastly, you can use and paint your object, and then after you've laid in all this heavy paint, you can take and scratch on with your finger. Whether you're using a finger paint idea, but if you scratch with your nail or a tool, it's going to give it a rough texture to it. When gluing your form together, you're going to be using hot glue gun. We can plug these into any of the drop outlets, but it is dangerous. You have to imagine that the tip of the gun is very hot. You don't want to burn yourself. To put these together, you're going to layer in the hot glue and then hold it in position with your fingers. Let it air dry for at least 30 seconds as you do it. Any excess glue, just wipe it off. You're going to get these little tiny spider webs. It is not completely dry now, but it will be dry enough that I can do my other side. I'm demoing on unpainted popsicle sticks, but I think this works better when you utilize popsicle sticks that are actually painted, and that way it's going to be neat. I made a mess with this, so I'm covering up with one of the thinner popsicle sticks just to make it look good. And take some scissors and trim it down and line it up. Neatness does count, so take your time to do it nice and neat, but this is a spontaneous sculpture. The glue itself is warm, so be careful. The other thing you need to be careful is not to rest the glue gun on anything that's flammable, or it's going to get glue on it and heat it up. If you choose to use E6000, it takes longer to dry, but it's less poofy. So you can line up the E6000 on your two shapes to create your form. But you may want to consider putting a masking tape to support it to make sure that it will actually stay in place. Thank you so much.